That'd take a while. And this is how you come down.
All right. Oh, got all my shit done. So I gotta get up early tomorrow morning to leave. And tomorrow morning is actually right now in your time. So I decided to come in here, take a break from the chaos in the house, and see if I might get a handful more people heard before I leave. All right, here we go. We got another one. This is titled, Have Not Heard This Before. Hello, Steve. Love your show. We live in Ohio. Go figure. Again, another Ohioan. In 2000, we had our first incident with a Bigfoot, and it has continued ever since over the years. In early May of this year, I found our son dead in his shack in a field next to our house. No cause of death yet determined. I am so sorry to hear that. 1 month later to the day, my wife and granddaughter heard sounds that could only have been a Bigfoot. They left early in the morning after telling me about the sounds. I'd not hear them as I sleep with a fan and AC unit running. They said it started in the field and moved to the front of our house. The next morning, when they're gone, I am on my laptop and I start hearing the same sounds. I turn off the laptop and hear sounds from something that could only have been a Bigfoot. The sounds were very deep and loud, and both my wife and me agreed it had a moaning, lost tone to it. It had to have come from a very large creature. The next day I found 2 non-human footprints in front of our house. I made a cast of the one that the heel marks sank about 3 inches into the hard ground. The wails lasted about 5 to 6 seconds, with about 10 seconds in between. I heard 6 to 8 of them. The distance from our house across the field of the woods is about 200 feet. End of story. I am very, very sad and sorry to hear about your son's passing. And I hope you get the closure you need for that, and find out what happened to the poor guy. That sucks. And another person has heard the long drawn-out wails in the forest. Michigan, Huron National Forest. No censoring needed. Can read all as written. Steve, thanks for the sharing of voices and the candid way in which you do it. An experience in one of your earlier videos triggered a memory for me and made me a regular viewer trying to gain what knowledge I can. And here it is. Early fall 2020. I was staying alone in a small wood-sided cabin near the western extent of Michigan's Huron National Forest. It was a cool and quiet day, clearing brush, riding the ATVs, followed by relaxing by the fire. That night, I woke from a deep sleep at about 3 a.m. with this strong feeling of dread. Hard to describe the feeling, not something I recall ever feeling before. Not fear, not panic, just this feeling that something is outside and something is about to go really wrong. I also vividly recall a loud thud high up on the wall near the roof, like an NFL linebacker had pounded it with his fist. Not punching it, with his knuckles. This sounded like heavy, solid muscle on wood siding, like how you would bang on a door if you were really pissed off. Now, I can't be certain I didn't just dream that single thud before waking up, but what followed, I know I heard for certain. That's exactly what I heard when the cabin I was in got slammed. There was no bone or hard stick in there. It was just thud. Loud, hard, heavy. It was dead quiet, pitch black inside the cabin, no lights on the outside. I sat in bed listening, and after maybe a minute, 2 or 3 acorns fell on the metal roof nearly simultaneously and rolled off. This repeated another 3 or 4 times, with 2 or 3 acorns hitting at the same time and rolling off the roof. I wrote this off my mind as falling from the large oak tree nearby. The dread had vanished somehow. I didn't get out of the bed to bring a firearm close by, and apparently I just fell back asleep. Didn't think anything of this again until I came across one of your videos. The feeling described in one of the experiences immediately brought back the vivid memory of what I just described. So, of course, I then had to head back and reassess what happened. I guess the oak tree in front of the cabin answered my questions, as no branches actually hang over the cabin. That night was dead calm with no breeze whatsoever. I'll try to think of another explanation, but I think I know what went down. Days blurred together during restrictions, and this is long before I saw any of your videos, but I think that all happened several hours after me jokingly wood knocking for my nephew, like those Bigfoot clowns on TV, before he headed home in the afternoon with my brother. No more wood knocking for me. I now plan to stay out of the club for as long as I can. Thanks again for what you do. Keep it up. Matt from Michigan. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that, man. And yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't smack trees, period. And my split wood at home in the driveway. Here comes adventure, puppy. Primitive camping in the Blue Mountains, North Carolina. Hello, Steve. Thank you for what you do and for this outlet. Given those who've had some experience that they themselves cannot explain may just be the mental lifesaver needed. You, sir, are helping in more ways than I think you even realize. Keep up the great work. Now to my story. I live in northern Piedmont of South Carolina, right under Charlotte, North Carolina. This This is my recollection of what had happened while camping, primitive style, in the Appalachian Mountains, North Carolina, near Boone, Blowing Rock, Linville Gorge area back in 08-09. My wife at the time and I decided to take our young daughter camping. Her sister and her boyfriend and young son also joined us. Now, we've been to those mountains before, but wanted a different experience. So we chose this primitive campground. No campers, no RVs, just humans and tents that we think protect us so much. Each campsite being separated by 100 yards or so. We arrived and were all set up by early afternoon and decided to hike around, keeping somewhat close to our area because of the little ones, although still pretty secluded. The scenery of those Blue Ridge trails are stunning, but are stunted by the backdrops I've seen in your neck of the woods. Nothing out of the ordinary happened during our trek around. We make it back to our site and let the s'mores fly, and before we know it, kids are out like a light. We set up talking and soon followed. Then the shit show started. Mind you, surely there are black bears in this vicinity, but I do remember seeing a big painted sign in the entrance of this campground stating, "No bears." I'm not sure how they can forecast that, but when asked, I was told there hasn't been a bear sighting in this particular area in 2 decades. During the early hours of morning, as it usually seems to be, I was initially woken by limbs breaking outside the tent to my left and quiet steps seemingly from 2 feet. Not twigs, but limbs. I lay there silently listening to this happening when I'm tapped on my shoulder by my wife asking, "Are you hearing this?" My honest first thought was another camper snooping around, but I wasn't going to yell out just yet. And then it's close enough to hear breathing, and no human being takes long, drawn-out, deep-ass breaths like this, or sniffs as if to smell so damn loud. It wasn't long before my soon-to-be brother-in-law sits up with the look of what the F on his face. With the 2 kiddos in this tent, we figured we had to try and scare off whatever was seemingly circling us. And we're deciding on our approach out of the tent with nothing but God on our side when we see a light from the campsite to our north come on, and then the unbelievable sound of something or something's tearing out of there. We soon realized that one of the little ones even peed themselves. Steve, all this happened in the area of another phenomenon called the Brown Mountain Lights. Something you may like to check out when given the time, and until I found your channel over a year ago now, learning things like this can be grouped together. I've always chalked this experience to bears, no matter what the big sign and the forest workers said back then. It just didn't sound like an animal, Steve. Thank you again for what you do. You're one of the good guys, and we all should keep fighting the good fight. You can use my name, Josh Reichley. Josh, appreciate you, man. I don't know what my reaction would be like. That'd be a real useless, helpless feeling, being in a tent, no weapon, you got kids there, and you hear that. That would so suck, wouldn't it? And you know what else sucks is the fact that nobody's officially informed about what's going on in the woods, so we can have a responsible choice on whether or not we want to expose ourselves to that shit or not beforehand, right? Before we take the children and go camping in a tent to that area where the shit's been going on for God knows how many decades, and we go there without a weapon because there's no bears, right? And whoever knows the truth just lets all these innocent, good, hardworking people go bumbling face first into that shit. Such a piss off. Anyway, let's keep going. It's the end of the day. I'm kind of tired. I might be susceptible to going on a little bit of a anger rant. Adventure Dog's gonna have a lay down. Thank God. All right, what do we got? Besides fogged up glasses from holding them in my hand. This is titled, A Life Lived Haunted. That sucks. Steve, I hope this email finds you well and rested. I'm a 50-year-old white male who is 1/8 Cherokee and the rest Scottish-Irish ancestry. I come from an old American Southern family. I am a U.S. Air Force Gulf War veteran and a master mason. Maybe my history might lead you to consider what I'm about to tell you. I've never told anyone this because I do not wish to be labeled crazy. I found your YouTube channel a while ago. You seem to be understanding of the facts of these creatures and what can accompany these entities that seem to walk in our forests. My first memory is when I was very young. I was reared in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. That is one big-ass airport there, man. Been there a few times. It's a huge airport in Atlanta. At the time, urban sprawl had not happened, and lots of land that is now cement and asphalt was wooded country. I woke in the middle of the night to feel a presence of being watched. As I was around my parents' room, I passed the bathroom. This bathroom had a window that was 9 feet on the outside of the house. I looked into the empty bathroom and saw a strange creature looking at me through the window. Later on in life, I discovered the face I saw looked like what is called Bigfoot. My parents did not believe me when I told them I saw a face in the bathroom window as it was 9 feet off the ground. Shortly after that, we moved into an abandoned old South mansion in East Atlanta. This land and structures were haunted by American Civil War soldiers from the Battle of Atlanta. But I'm not here to tell you those stories. Yeah, I'm not into ghosts myself. Later on, my grandmother, who was half Cherokee, told me a story about a Bigfoot that came to visit our family dairy in DeKalb County, Dekalb. Every spring and autumn, this creature would spend a few days living in the farmhouse cellar and stealing 50-pound jugs of unprocessed milk, and it would also take a few of our chickens. My grandfather wanted to go kill it or run it off, as it was eating and drinking his profit. My grandmother convinced him it was best to leave it alone, and it would soon leave. She remembered stories being told to her by her tribe to leave the creatures alone, and they will leave you alone. She said they were a Native American tribe, just like the Cherokee, and deserved respect. One fall season, not sure of the year, my grandfather was out in the fields looking to see if the corn was ready for harvest. He saw a creature run across the dirt road and disappear into the corn. We grew corn to feed our dairy herd. He told me once he saw it, he felt compelled to chase it. So off he went after it through the corn rows. My grandfather was a true man's man. He feared nothing and would never back down. As he was chasing this Bigfoot through the corn, he began to think, if I find this creature, all he has in his pocket is a folding pocket knife. He told us at that moment he felt fear and dread and began to run opposite the direction the creature went. When he arrived back at the truck, he noticed his leather jacket had been torn to shreds on his back. To this day, we do not know if the creature did it or just the corn. Leather? Pretty sure it wasn't corn. That's kind of an alarming detail there, isn't it? I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force at age 20. My first duty station was Ellison Air Force Base, just south of Fairbanks, Alaska. While in Alaska, I became a prolific fisherman, hunter, and trapper. I fully embraced the outdoors and the spectacular beauty of the outdoors. If I was not deployed or on duty, I was in the bush. I never came across, hey, come on, it's okay. It's getting dark. She heard something. She's a little on the nervous side still. I was not deployed or on duty. I was in the bush. I never came across anything that I could not account to grizzly bears. I was traveling by truck from Ellison AFB to Elmendorf AFB, which is in Anchorage. The truck blew a tire and the spare was flat. We were literally stranded in the middle of nowhere. At that time, not much traffic would be on that highway. Several miles back, we had noticed a cache, a group of long cabins suspended by logs that looked abandoned. We decided to walk to the cache. Upon arriving there, we were relieved to find it was inhabited. In true Arctic fashion, they took us in and fed us and gave us shelter. They had a ham radio that was used to get a spare tire flown in by bush plane, but that would take a few days. Over the next few days, I began to ask about any possible Bigfoot sightings. I figured if this creature was here in Alaska, these people who lived in the middle of nowhere would have seen them. Slowly, they opened up and began to tell stories of Bigfoot sightings in conjunction with UFO sightings. This got my attention quickly. I too had UFO sightings in the southeast U.S. Me and my buddy were in civilian clothes, but once our host discovered we were in the U.S. Air Force, all talk of Bigfoot and UFOs stopped. I was upset, but did not want to piss off these people that had saved us from the bush. Other paranormal activities happened in Alaska, but no Bigfoot. After Alaska, I was sent to Travis Air Force Base in California. Oh, it's the goats. The goats just came in now. all hell should break loose here pretty quick. It was a beautiful location with Sacramento to the north, San Francisco to the west, and the Sierra Nevada mountains to the east. I did not hunt in California due to extreme gun laws at the time. Most of my firearms were Cali illegal, so I sent them home to Georgia. Fishing became my obsession, and trout was my game. I learned to use a fly rod and fish the hell out of the Sierra Nevada mountains. We'd set up a fish camp and fish every available weekend. I did have several scary encounters in the mountains with lights in the mountains and forest, and lots of animal movement after dark. I started asking questions about Bigfoot since I was in his backyard. Every old timer I talked with, had an encounter story that also involved lights in the forest. Go figure. Only reported about 50,000 times now, right? We'd find tracks on the outskirts of our camp, but decided they were just bear tracks. If you were a Bigfoot, it was a big one. I had enough of the military life and was eager to go back to my home state of Georgia. After returning home, my wife and I found ourselves house sitting for her sister. She lived toward Athens, Georgia, from Conyers. Conyers? Connors? Conyers? It was totally rural, and her property sat upon a hill. The backyard had motion lights that would shine down just to the tree line that backed up into the wild woods. My sister-in-law had a couple of daughters. I received a call from my wife asking if I could go get off work early. A couple boys had scared the girls, and she did not know what to do. I arrived at the house and became the alpha male when dealing with these boys. Thinking the boys had scared the girls for fun, we talked in the backyard. They told me that the four of them had hiked deep into the woods and discovered what they thought were Native American mounds and tree structures. Upon finding this, they thought it wise to have a seance. I was a little upset at this point, as I was a missionary for the Southern Baptist in the Caribbean. Nevertheless, they continued. They told of a giant hair-covered man that appeared and chased them home. As they told me the story, my eyes caught sight of red eye shine just past the floodlights. I asked what color were its eyes, and they said red, and it had a foul smell. I told the boys to look at what I was looking at, and they immediately went to their car and drove off. I called my wife and asked her to go to our house and collect my 12-gauge of slugs and double-aught buckshot shells. She was concerned, but did as I asked. Steve, I sat in the backyard all night with a loaded 12-gauge, watching red eye shine try to get close to the house. It circled all around the property, but always stayed just outside of the floodlights. The next day, we found some drawings the girls had made, and it was alarming. The girls had drawn what looks like gray aliens and Bigfoot looking in the bedroom windows at night. That would suck ass to have small children scratch that off. Moving on to hunting. My hunting buddy and I leased a 1,000-acre tract of land in Zebulon, Georgia. This property is rich in white-tailed deer and turkey. We had several tree stands all over the property and a small stream that divided the land. We had some friends from South Georgia who come up to hunt, as we hunted wild boar with them the weekend before. Most of my tree stands were near the small stream. I just put the last guy in the tree and was heading to my tree that I was going to hunt from when I heard something walking on two legs at my pace. When I stopped, it stopped. The moon was full, but I was in an old hardwood forest, and the moonlight did not hit the forest floor. The faster I moved, the faster it moved. It was then I saw a shadowy figure, and it was huge. I was struck with fear. It was bow season. All I had was my compound bow. The only way I could move was to grab an arrow, set the nock, and tell myself I'm the baddest MFer in the woods. It followed me to the clearing where trucks were parked. I got in my truck until the sun came up. No one else in my hunting party had any strange happenings, so I kept it to myself. Toward the end of the season that year, we were having no luck in our morning stands, so we thought to hunt our evening stands in the morning. Big mistake. My stand was on the end of a large open field. We would always enter the woods 2 hours before sunup to let the woods go quiet after we were in our stands. I reached my tree and attached my rifle to the rope. I felt like I was being watched, just shook it off. Upon climbing the tree, I reached my stand and started to pull up my rifle. At this point, I saw two red eyes at the base of the tree looking up. Once I had my rifle chambered around and turned on the flashlight, there's nothing there. but the eyes were now on the other side of the tree. I chased this thing the rest of the night till sunup and could never get a light on it. There were no footprints or tracks of any kind. When I met my hunting buddy later that morning, he was wanting to get out of the woods fast. We've never talked about it since, and I no longer hunt. I've always thought the woods were alive, and now I know it. True. All right, so we got one dog laying down and 2 goats walking around. I became a Cub Scout assistant leader for my son's pack. We were camped at Lake West Point in Georgia. Cub Scout rule is always go with a buddy, never go alone. Due to my work, we arrived at camp after dark, and the only spot available was far away from the rest of the pack on the lake shore. Before setting up camp, my wife saw several orbs of light in our campsite. I was using a huge 14-man cabin tent with 3 rooms with dividers. We made camp and settled in for sleep. My wife woke me, whispering to me that someone was walking around her tent. The tent is 10 feet tall. I heard the footsteps on the leaves then, from the top of the 10-foot tent to the bottom of the tent. Something ran its fingernail down the side my wife was sleeping on. In Scouts, you are not to bring firearms, but I never go into the woods without one. Upon hearing this, I jumped up with a .45 ACP in one hand and a flashlight in the other. Exiting the tent, I saw nothing. It was dead quiet. Nothing out of the ordinary. After I walked around the tent several times, I got back in the tent and went to sleep. In the morning, my son had to go to the restroom, so I walked him up to the outhouse. We both saw an upright, all-black, fur-covered being jump off the road into the woods. Other campers had reported a bear, but this was no bear. Hey, beat it. No bears live this far south. When we arrived home, I started searching the web about Lake West Point, and I was amazed to discover it was full of Bigfoot, ghost, and UFO stories. It was dead quiet, nothing out of the ordinary. After I walked around the tent several times, I got back in the tent and went to sleep. In the morning, my son had to go to the restroom, so I walked him up the outhouse. We both saw an upright, all-black, fur-covered being jump off the road into the woods. Other campers had reported a bear, but this was no bear. No bears live this far south. When we arrived home, I started searching the web about Lake West Point, and I was amazed to discover it was full of Bigfoot, ghost, and UFO stories. I have no idea what these creatures are. The Cherokee called them Tsul'kalu', and my Northern European ancestors called them wild men. They seem to have always been here. I do not venture off trails or go deep into the national forests anymore. I also follow Missing 411, and I think there are several things that we, the tax-paying public, are not told. I still go fishing, but I'm always armed. The forest creatures are not all you have to worry about. Humans are evil too. Many times I've been in a fishing spot either on the bank or in my kayak, and my sixth sense tells me to leave, and I do. Unless you have felt it, it's hard to describe. You can carry an exposed firearm in a national forest, but you cannot fly a drone? What are they hiding in the forest from us? We need disclosure, and I'm sure it is stranger than we can imagine. There seems to be a spiritual or paranormal connection. Truth is stranger than fiction, and I hope I live to see the truth. I hope that this little bit of information may lead to connecting the dots. Steve, keep going and be strong. You too, man. You too, and everybody else out there listening. Keep going and be strong. Well, that was a chunk of experiences. That's a lot. You know, on that note of the weird shit going on, somebody forwarded me a quick clip, and it was a man, what's his name? Roger Stone. Roger Stone. What is he, an author or a movie maker? Whatever he is. I'm obviously not, I don't keep tabs on celebrities, I just don't. But, and from what he said, I watched a video of him speaking in an interview on some news show, and he said that someone had told him that a, quote, demonic type, oh God, now my brain's frothing, I'm getting kind of tired, portal, a demonic type portal had opened over top of the White House when the crime family took it over, and apparently it's still there. And he said, and he laughed at that statement just like anybody else would, but he had a police officer friend in DC who he phoned and asked if he would go check it out, and the guy apparently got hold of him and said, yeah, man, there is something bizarre there and it's still there. Have I had time to look into it more? No. It does sound a little freaking odd, right? I mean, both sides are coming at each other with every single kind of anything they can to discredit each other. And so saying that a demonic portal opened up as soon as the crime family took over the White House would sound just like another shot being taken. But then I did a quick Google and a whole pile of stuff came up on that topic, but I haven't had time to look into it. So it's interesting now, isn't it? What if? What if that's true? I don't know. Maybe we should look into that possibly, or somebody might have some details. And if you do, or you photo or video evidence of this thing that apparently is still there, I don't know, send it to me. If you want to share it with all the people, I'll share it with everybody. We'll have a look at this. And maybe it might be a missing piece of the puzzle, right? Anyway, gotta go.